Hey there, fellow wanderers. As you step through the time-worn archway of the past, imagine that you are surrounded by the chill of an old stone corridor. The air is thick with the acrid smell of burning tallow from flickering lamps that cast long shadows dancing along the clammy walls. The atmosphere is heavy with whispers and tales that ride on the evening mist, wrapping around you like an ancient cloak. It's dim, darker than the deepest part of a forgotten forest, and you can almost hear the distant clamour of hooves on cobblestones, mixed with muffled cries from ages long past. This is not a fairy tale. This is a peek into the superstitions that shaped a time where truth and imagination intertwined with remarkable ease. Welcome to the Middle Ages, a period steeped in mystery, where what was understood could barely hold a candle to what was feared. So before we dive deeper, I ask only this. If this kind of raw, unvarnished truth speaks to you, click like, hit subscribe, and leave a trace of yourself in the comments. Tell me your city, your time, your state of mind. Now, dim the lights. Let the hum of your fan blend with the wind of centuries past. Let's begin. And remember, in medieval times, even survival was a luxury. Picture yourself trudging along a mud-slicked path, cloaked in the early morning mist as villagers scatter like shadows at the sight of the unexplained. The Middle Ages, an era from the 5th to the late 15th century, was a time ripe with superstitions that seemed to seep into every crevice of life. Imagine a world where each shadow seemed to hide an omen, each breeze carried whispers of the otherworldly. It's fascinating to learn that fear, rather than understanding, often dictated the events of the day. Even the simplest of actions, like the winding of a spool of thread or the direction a rooster crowed, held deeper, sometimes ominous significance. To the medieval mind, such sights often tethered them to beliefs that were both entrancing and formidable. While there's no official record of a medieval time traveller dropping a smartphone into the town square, historical accounts do show that the medieval worldview was largely dominated by the church. The church's teachings often intertwined with local customs to create a tapestry of dictated behaviour, where defiance could lead to being labelled as a heretic, or worse, a friend of the dark arts. Superstitions arose, filling the gaps where science had yet to tread. Historians still argue whether the persistence of these beliefs was due to sheer ignorance or a primitive need to explain the inexplicable. What is undeniable is the impact these superstitions had on daily life and decision-making. It's almost endearing, in a way, to see how human nature works tirelessly to fill in the blanks. The villagers knew they weren't court astronomers, and so they concocted tales to illustrate the unknown. In every corner of society there were murmurs of fear, witches casting hexes, the evil eye cursing those who crossed its path, and ravens that called in the name of death. You find yourself skirting a puddle, careful not to splash your new shoes. A quirky reminder of the villagers who once wore garlic cloves around their necks, hoping to ward off evil spirits with their pungent fragrance. Oh, there were remedies. Most came in the form of peculiar rituals, charms, and household items thought to provide protection against the dark forces that lurked beyond the pale of understanding. Horseshoes nailed above doors to guard against malicious sprites, and for those who could afford them, silver amulets were prized, though easy to misplace. Remember that quirky tidbit. A horseshoe wasn't just hung up with any nail, mind you. The choice was vital. Some beliefs were born from kernels of truth. Take, for example, the use of garlic. It has been said that peasants reeking of this kitchen staple rarely fell ill during epidemics. Modern science knows that garlic has antimicrobial properties, but to a medieval villager, the connection was clear. Garlic, a foe to vampires, was undoubtedly potent enough to assign the Grim Reaper to a different abode. Flickers of dread were common in the stark reality of medieval existence, which in itself seemed like a stage upon which fear and speculation held equal billing. Magic and mystery dotted the landscape like stars in the night sky, each one a puzzle piece in the grand cosmological tapestry. As you continue to wander this lingering daydream of history, it's easy to see how survival back then wasn't just about overcoming the elements or staving off hunger. Instead, it wove through the fabric of the soul, a finely threaded yarn of belief meant to ward off the encroaching shadows of fate. All of this, your senses soaking in the tangible blend of past and present, gives you a deeper understanding of how superstition coloured the Middle Ages in ways both charming and chilling. Unquestionably, these tales possess a strange allure, drawing you into their deceptively simple embrace. Keep your courage close as the journey continues, for as we delve deeper into these curious relics of belief, we shall uncover some truly peculiar tales. And so, the stage is set for our exploration of the witches of old, those intriguing figures shrouded in legend and fear. The haze begins to clear, revealing the rustic village houses with wattle and daub walls and thatched roofs casting sleepy silhouettes against the horizon. You proceed carefully through the cobbled lanes, your footsteps echoing in the pre-dawn quiet. And there it is, the unmistakable dread of the townsfolk concerning witches. A chilling spectre that lingers on the edge of every medieval consciousness. It's the sounds of early morning you're attuned to now, perhaps the hint of a rooster crow labouring through crisp air, though even the roosters are cautious, wary of casting their song northward with ill favour. Witches, perceived as malevolent beings, were blamed for all manners of calamities, from twisted crops to sudden sickness. They were believed to wield dark powers acquired through unholy pacts, casting spells that could bring misfortune with a mere murmur beneath moonlight. The witch hunts, their whispers carving dread into the bone marrow of society, sprouted from this paranoid climate. Of course, not every woman who dared to practice herbal remedies was destined for the pyre. Oftentimes these unfortunate souls were simple town healers or eccentric lone dwellers, misunderstood in their pursuit of natural wisdom. Still, the fear was potent enough to outweigh understanding. Historians still argue whether these hunts were fueled by genuine belief, misogynistic control, or merely societal pressure seeking a scapegoat at every turn. The crisp air carries a scent reminiscent of wet earth as you imagine a congregation gathering haphazardly within the village square. Hooded parcels shuffling closer, filled with mistrust. A gloved finger might point accusingly, though that's rarely how it was done. Accusations typically rustled through towns quietly first, like the spread of ink through parchment, staining the reputation of a woman whose ears were burned by what travelled in secret. The lore of witches paired closely with notions of alchemy and magic. The medieval world, fascinatingly enough, is where science and superstition often congealed into indistinguishable forms. Picture, if you will, through today's lens, the enchanting world of Harry Potter, mixing freely with alien monoliths, etched by prehistoric architects. Sorcery was not an art shunned by all, but the friends of darkness and light were distinguished by their intention, or so it was believed. Yet within this chaos, a singular quirky thread weaves through, the broomstick motif. So synonymous with witches were the brooms they flew upon, though its origins are less than magical. Some tales tell of broomsticks used during pagan agricultural ceremonies, leaping high into the air to invite fields to rise as bountiful crops. The necessity of clearing dust from demon-sacred thresholds was another suspicion, making the broomstick a household item fused with layer upon layer of lore, just as peanut butter finds its pairing with jelly, an inseparable duo. And onward you wander, past doors with charms hanging like ornaments, warding against wayward souls, for enchanted curses were considered potent and inescapable. When a milk cow suddenly soured or a child fell ill, suspicion often spun like a top, landing square on the nearest perceived witch. Fascinatingly enough, some humorous accounts tell of women thwarting accusations by proving indispensable with wit or cunning, or simply ensuring their broom made for poor aerodynamics. Remember that comedic note? Being an adept conversationalist seemed to be as influential as casting crafted spells with nimble fingers. One cannot speak of witches without acknowledging the trials, bizarre tests where accused women had to endure absurd rituals to prove their innocence. Unfortunately, these were often lose-lose affairs. There's the humorously grim bit about ducking witches, an ordeal claiming that drowning proved innocence while floating confirmed guilt. Logic and mercy were strangers in the dark labyrinth of medieval justice. Ah, dear listener, breathe in deeply. It's a marvel trying to comprehend how such beliefs possessed entire eras, draping shadows where none needed exist. With this understanding, perhaps you find a sliver of rest, the soft balm of time, settling echoes of past fears. We've scratched but the surface of this cauldron. many ingredients remain to season our curious minds. The path ahead leads us from these candlelit rooms of sorcery and shadowy embraces to the piercing glance of another form of enchantment, the ever-watchful, unyielding presence of the evil eye. Can you still feel its gaze, like two fingers pressing lightly just in the space between your brows? Rest assured, the stories waiting are just as captivating. Your mind rouses with the allure of a soft breeze, the whisper of distant waves crashing on unseen shores, as you trod onwards into a realm dominated by something simple yet profound, the gaze of the evil eye. This enigmatic belief, deeply entrenched in the tapestry of medieval life, possessed the power to twist destiny with a mere look, or so it was said. It's as if your modern gaze itself is wary of meeting that eye shot, in case legacy functionality is unknowingly unlocked in its mystical hardware. Imagine yourself in a bustling medieval market, the braying of donkeys mingling with the aroma of roasted chestnuts and anise. The evil eye encapsulated fears of envy, malicious intent, and an unspoken threat hovering in the air, often crystallized when an envious glance lingered just a heartbeat too long. Current urban legends don't hold a candle to this fearsome superstition. Here, a casual observation could render illness upon the beloved and wilt the healthiest of thighs. Such was the immediacy of peril perceived in medieval belief. People bore an innate sense of vulnerability against this purported curse, driven by the anxieties of a world brimming with unpredictable perils. The evil eye, as legend maintains, could snatch away fortune or strike innocent victims, usually after some poor soul had the audacity to experience happiness visibly. And who hasn't prepared for a promotion or first date with some secret talisman to throw luck a safety net cheer? Think of it as the original prototype for smizing, but with deadly consequences. Amidst this dim world of protective incantations, certain practices emerged to divert or nullify the malevolence of the dreaded eye. Blue amulets, often curved into eerie, beady eyes themselves, were common across medieval marketplaces, sold with zeal or bartered against half-dented pocket watches. For those who unknowingly ventured the chronological oddities of the day, naturally, these amulets promised protection by deflecting malevolent gaze back upon the sender, like medieval compact mirrors reflecting unflattering glances. Equally quirky, and perhaps more intimately endearing, was the protective fig gesture. A thumb thrust between the middle and index fingers, a remedy believed effective against unwanted gazes. True, it's not altogether different from that funny gesture your cousin makes when you steal the last slice of pizza. The practical ritual allowed people to carry their defenses perpetually, fingers poised at the ready against ill tidings, conjuring an improvised battleground smudged with desperate charm and humour. Real debate still flourishes, bubble-like, over historians' heads about the origins of the evil eye, whether Mediterranean shores inspired its genesis, or a germ of ancient superstition carried over from Near Eastern influence found precarious footholds via marauding eagle's foot jewellery salesmen. While no one wrote the instruction manual, the animosity felt by the medieval soul towards this malevolent glance has persisted through generational whispers into a shared narrative patchwork quilt, warming the imagination even today. Incredibly, modern scholarship poked these superstitions with critical fingers and discovered that the evil eye's narrative layers reflect more about societal structures than ethereal forces. Holding power to determine social hierarchy in communities where the haves inevitably clashed with the have-nots, the evil eye blazed its acute significance into power dynamics long before Facebook friends became counted. This eye saw far, spread wide, and became a shadowy overseer at the banquet table of medieval misapprehension. Extricate yourself from these probing eyes, and you'll find that the atmospheric tension tempers slightly as you explore tales where sight turns inwards, delving into the song of the human experience. In quiet homes and gathering places, talk of the evil eye may have lowered voices, even as people searched for their own sources of power, strength, or mere reassurance against life's unpredictabilities. After all, the times required nothing less than acceptance and creativity. In moving forward, let the richness of their beliefs guide us gently into the living woodlands and sparse fields of another strange tale. The soil, laced with curious artifacts and deep roots, is awaiting revelation. Where the Mandrake root lies enclosed, an innocent-looking plant burdened with superstition, stirring from its age-old slumber, to take its theatrical turn on this fascinating medieval stage. As you meander through the verdant realms of medieval imagination, you catch the musty scent of overturned soil mingling with the crispness of morning dew. Here, beneath the sprawling canopy of folklore, lies a root that seems to whisper with a life of its own: the Mandrake. To the untrained eye, it might appear as an unassuming herb, yet its roots gripped tightly onto the humour and horrors of medieval mindscapes. Imagine yourself kneeling in a sunlit clearing, the gentle song of birds harmonising with the rustle of leaves. It's here that the mandrake root plays the role of both healer and harbinger, a botanical spectacle straddling the line between medicine and magic. For centuries, this root posed as a secretive accomplice to physicians and sorcerers alike, its reputation steeped in supernatural lore. The mandrake's distinctive feature, resembling the human form in miniature, tiny limbs splayed out beneath the soil, became its trademark. This peculiar resemblance didn't escape the medieval imagination. Myths proliferated about its powerful draw, an aching, inevitable connection to humanity and destiny, or rather, a very personal shriek-bringer of doom, should it ever be uprooted carelessly. Ah yes, the infamous mandrake scream, compared by some to banshee wails, or the shrill death cries of the Rat King Society, or the modern equivalent, your alarm on a Monday morning. Such tales regaled listeners with a theatrical flourish, proposing that disturbing a mandrake from its resting place required cunning. The standard instructions, if you aimed for survival, demanded digging down and tethering the root with the leashes of loyal, albeit expendable, animals. Let them bear the deadly sound of its unearthing while you covered sensitive eardrums, lest you wished, like Orpheus before you, for a tragic turnaround. It's a notion certainly rich with drama, if a little short on consideration for your pooch safety. In more practical realms, however, the mandrake held notable medical promise. It offered sedative properties, aiding in surgeries where a sharp knife met seasoned anatomist. Historians still debate whether the root's narcotic qualities were truly pioneering for its time or merely fortunate coincidence. Weary knights on return from battle yearned for its soothing touch, a natural Valium in the age-long war against discomfort. Scholars, particularly interested in strange agricultural practices, have mused on the puzzling association between the mandrake and fertility. As much as the ethereal style of your average magical birth control, the connection may indeed correlate with the root's shape and potency. Farmers, perhaps hoping for robust offspring or livestock, took the myth to heart in their planting traditions, entwining humanity and mandrake into a shared cycle of birth and reverence for the cyclical nature of life itself. And yet, behind the folkloric curtain, there is still an evocative whisper. Was the mandrake cursed, or simply misunderstood? As you brush aside the cobwebs of speculation, its narrative unfolds. A juxtaposition of practical botany and desperate superstition. Campfires breathe fresh life into tales traded under the sway of moonlit skies, older generations passing on legends curdled sweetly over time, like milk forgotten in the summer sun. It was as if the mingling of truth and myth satisfied an intrinsic medieval yearning. Today's scientific world, prying the guard from its shrouded roots, has unravelled the mandrake's mystery. Hatch its tender skin open, and there lies not malice, but alkaloids, a chemistry waiting to be discovered and tamed under professorial eyes. Men and women who wielded knives in laboratories long after the last mandrake's scream faded, broadened knowledge, because even myths are seeds, demanding care in their sown perception. Prying eyes continue steering you deeper into woodlands, where the branches still listen quietly. Though these roots recall memories of past forays into delight and fear, your path lies ahead. Past fields alive with raven caws, a murmur of wings heralding new mysteries, new superstitions that beckon. Harbingers, indeed, or friends with wings of shadow that you'll soon discover in their own grandiloquent tale. The forest canopy gives way to a clearing as the cawing of ravens punctuates the frosty morning air like a sharp quill writing across a page. In the medieval world, ravens were not simply birds, but omens, whose presence could sway minds and futures. Shadowy figures against the pale sky, they were both feared and revered. Creatures carrying whispers of the supernatural and murmurings from the beyond, as if each black feather housed a secret of devotion or doom. The medieval European landscape, with its tapestry of hills and valleys, was populated with folklore assigning significance to the natural world. Ravens often found themselves at the centre of such tales, their imposing figures stirring both awe and anxiety. As you watch a murder of them take flight, a wave of sound washes over you, blustering wing beats mingling with cryptic calls echoing through the chill air. To the medieval mind, ravens were enigmas. Their intelligence, observed in their craftiness when foraging or assembling sticks for nests, further elevated them to a status beyond mere avian. Historically, they were seen as messengers, figures bearing prophetic weight that flew seamlessly between worlds, delivering insights wrapped in riddles. The cry of a raven, piercing and commanding, was seldom ignored. It wasn't merely superstition that gave ravens their mystique. Touching on the scholarly debate, some say this bird's association with death and war offset its roles in Norse mythology, symbolizing Odin's sight and wisdom. Meanwhile, others suggest that ravens' penchant for scavenging made them unwelcome spectral guardians, readily accused of spying on behalf of nefarious forces. From the perch of today's ergonomic office chair, it's quaintly reassuring to imagine boardroom executives addressing such concerns, and perhaps they've traded insights with a passing crow. Yet their sinister associations weren't omnipresent. In Celtic and Roman traditions, ravens were seen as symbols of transformation, creatures representing metamorphosis and the cycle of life and death. Enter the realm of the realm's bards and storytellers, and ravens speak in tongues woven with foresight. These narratives turned the tables on established fears, demonstrating that the bird's black was not just the absence of light, but the presence of all potentiality. Ravens' superstitions thrived on the notion of their faculties, primarily their sharp perception, as if they alone possessed the map to the labyrinth of fate. Stories abound of ravens lighting upon the shoulders of the royals and whispering secrets that could alter the destiny of kingdoms. Beware, for the bird's breathless cadence might be apt to trick the foolish or reckless. Those brushing their warnings aside in bravado, perhaps you feel a shiver, a creeping tingling up the spine, reminiscent of overheard secrets, and you notice a brace of ravens above, their intent gaze forever filled with knowledge only partially perceived. One fancies that they watch you, murmuring hypotheses in their own tongue, like underappreciated naturalists observing human flimflam from their perch above. It's this pervasive belief that even in modernity echoes, sparking eerie tales told around flickering campfires where shadows are cast long against ancient stones. The raven's presence, with its beady eyes and sleek plumage, weaves timelessly through this lore. A remnant, if you will, from times embalmed in stories, incantations whispered with the caution of yore. Is it possible that amid stark stone castles and quiet field-bound hamlets, these dark birds genuinely directed human affairs? Or were they simply winged vessels through which people explored their existential fears? The inescapable gravitas of destiny played out in melodically measured flights. The fields lie quiet now, save for the crows, but deeper understanding grows in you. The recognition where superstition has laid its indelible ink, inviting endless debate over strength, vulnerability and adaptation. It's a dance performed with shadows amid gleaming fields, pulling you ever on, the echo urging further discovery as we step toward the tales of protection in iron horseshoes and the stories they guard just out of sight. Straddling the thresholds of homes and history, as evening descends in your medieval journey, the village takes on a warm, glowing aura. Doorways are marked by a peculiar adornment, horseshoes nailed with intention above lintels. These silent sentinels bear witness to generations passing beneath them, a talisman of luck and protection, often overlooked amid grander superstitions, but held dearly by those seeking a touch of fortune. In the sensory oasis of a dimly lit cottage-scape, the metallic scent of wrought iron mingles with that of bread baking in an unseen oven. There's a return-like comfort in the clinking sound of metal, equine echoes spun into folklore. After all, who would have thought that a simple device meant to protect hooves could, in turn, safeguard an entire home from mischief and doom? Picture villagers bustling about in their rustic homes, each harbouring deep-seated beliefs in the invisible workings of horseshoes. It's a wonderful sense of pragmatic magic, where iron's natural strength and purity presented a barrier to creatures of chaos. Here, blacksmiths stood akin to wizards, conjuring protection from the furnace's glow. Historians suggest the horseshoe's origins in ancient traditions, entwined with societies spanning continents, from Celtic lands to Roman domains. Some claim, in anecdotal delight, that the medieval knack for horseshoe superstition had roots in pagan mythology, where iron repelled fairies, those mischievous fae fond of swapping babies for changelings. To the ever-practical peasantry, hanging horseshoes around hearths and cradles was a small measure to ensure fidelity in familial relations and other elusive associations. You'll find it piquant that they insisted horseshoes be nailed with special care. There existed fierce debate whether the open end should point up, to cup and hold luck, or hang downward, to shower those below with continual blessings. A trifling detail at first glance, if one charitably considers it alongside musings in grander circles as to whether water runs uphill or sideways on sandy shores. The reality, of course, was likely one of pragmatic consistency. True to their time, these devices did far more than languish under wooden beams. Rusticals and age gave the impression of being steeped in power, drawing invisible lines of safe passageways across domiciles. The practice spread with such appeal that even royal chambers sported them as symbols of safeguarding against misaligned stars or shadowy prowlers alike. While horseshoes were commonly regarded as protectors of homes, their appearance in foundational social ceremonies is equally fascinating. Nails driven into beams marked auspicious milestones, an uncanny knack these medieval folk had for taking what's plain and designing a passage to tranquil existence. The horseshoe's presence was a humble anchor amid life's ebb and flow, stepping a dance in rhythm with neighbourly nods and friendly caresses. Imagine the gentle tug-of-war in discussing whether the horseshoe matters lay in its physical placement. The sign of ironwork hidden within was just as crucial. During this time, iron inexplicably bore a reputation as an otherworldly balance between life's gentleness and unyielding armour. It parried shadows with its stoic rigidity, charmed into mail coats and cheery chimes in crowded barns, yet, above a doorway, it became a border beyond which tired spirits fell to rest, much like sitting in awkward silence on ancient museum benches gazing at remnants. Quietly, softly, the midnight cloak falls over the village. The gentle clatter of horses' hooves on cobblestones lulls you further into tales yet untold, where ancient beliefs rest easy beneath bewitching night. Embrace this transition as we slide forward into the tale of the Black Cat, creature of moonlit paths, a slender presence that prowls with intentions misunderstood, but beckoning to be unravelled in silky darkness. Keep an eye on the shadows. Even they whisper secrets. The night wraps itself around you snugly, a velvet cloak coloured in inky blues and silvers. In the stillness of medieval lanes drenched under starlit skies, the faint rustle of movement pricks your senses. There, moonlight dances upon sleek, dark fur. A black cat lifts its gaze to meet yours. Its eyes, jewels glinting in the darkness, reflect an intelligence both ancient and enigmatic. Welcome to the realm where shadows roam with quiet elegance, and folklore is as alive as a hidden heartbeat. Consider this feline figure, padding silently on paw tips past weathered cobblestones, a creature caught between superstition and mundane existence. The black cat, forever framed in paws of perplexity, was once a symbol ensnared in threads of misgiving. In certain circles, its presence forecasted bad luck, a harbinger of misfortune that slunk through the narrow thoroughfares. Yet, across the medieval world, the Black Cat's narrative wasn't a tale told in singularity, but rather a canvas painted in contrasts. Consider a cold evening hearthside when travellers might recount tales of cats as companions to witches, their lithe bodies silhouettes against firelit walls, seemingly stitching malice with threadbare nods. Historians debate whether these associations spawned from the cat's nocturnal habits, or merely sprang from the fertile imagination of those caught in haloed dimness. On some streets, where cobbled stones tell stories both forgotten and cherished, the black cat was seen not as sinister, but sacred. In ancient Egypt, and throughout the medieval holdovers from those venerations, cats were protectors of granaries, spirits in the fur of guardians like temple statues come idling to life. As such, merchants favoured them for companionship on long journeys, trusting their instinct to ward off more earthly pests. In medieval Britain, curious contradictions emerge. Giant folklore creatures paradoxically deemed cats both good fortune and beasts of law's mystery. Cats were endowed with 9 lives, a tidbit reflecting not just perceived cunning, but perhaps medieval acknowledgement of cats' uncanny survivability. Despite being at the crossroads of paranoia, black cats crossed paths not just with perceived ill fortune, but celestial wonder, steering clear when necessary from human clumsiness, or quietly observing while eras shifted. Interestingly, while the superstitions surrounding black cats draw extensively from cultural exchanges across Europe, allegories wobble wildly aboard ships' decks. Maritime folklore dictated that feline passengers bestowed good luck upon their vessels, believed to possess knowledge of weather and the mood of oceans, navigating none too feebly in eyeshot of maritime calamity. Thus, maritime wanderers and travellers dared not set sail without whiskered crew in tow. The battle over perceptions of black cats rages still, surrounded by mists of ambiguity and occasional silliness. The medieval cottage garden sits silent, though slivers of chuckles waft up when recollecting the flying broom parody, nimbly launched from days deserted or humoured into everyday exchange. Unsurprisingly, societies since have shifted toward appreciation rather than dread, reclaiming dispersed feline narratives with nostalgia's glow. You find respite in knowing those same cats once accused of moonlit craft are today treasured companions, adding warmth to many a modern abode. Still enchanting, still aloof, whisking tales weaving comfort against lonely evenings. There's a sublime amusement in perceiving these creatures through lenses both past and present, companions of yore whose reflections induce stories with intrigue. Our raconteur's journey winds gently toward other myths, for now, relinquishing the mystery of the black cat, who weaves seamlessly through the whispering streets like a silk thread through woolen tapestry. In the distance yet emerges another symbol so familiar you might still reach into the depth of your pocket. A rabbit's foot, promising luck. Eager tales await of its curious charm, holding aloft a sense of wonder, lingering just outside reach, as if chased on nimble hare's foot. As the first tendrils of dawn creep over the horizon, the world awakens to soft hues of daylight seeping through the countryside. Imagine the gentle thump as you pat your pocket, reassured by the comforting presence of a small furry talisman. A rabbit's foot. A curious relic of ancient belief, the rabbit's foot carries a legacy of luck that has traversed time, leaving its mark on the history of superstitions. In the quiet corners of the medieval village, where rugged paths intersect with fields of dewy grass, the rabbit was seen as a creature intimately linked to the earth's cycles. Quick of paw and sharp of wit, it embodied fertility and new beginnings, traits that naturally lent themselves to the association with good fortune. Historians have traced this belief back to Celtic traditions, wherein rabbits, dwelling in burrows, were thought to commune directly with underworld spirits. Thus, some say, a part of them was imbued with otherworldly look. Reaching into your pocket, the rabbit's foot becomes a tactile link to those days when talismans were currency in zones where superstition held sway. Centuries ago, such a charm might dangle from the belt of a peasant or merchant, its presence an unspoken, protective assurance. It's almost poetic how something so humble could hold sway over the fates in the minds of its bearers. Lest we forget its origins, it's notable that the rabbit's foot was believed to only bring luck if sourced under specific circumstances. Some tales insisted it must be taken from the left hind foot of a rabbit caught in a graveyard. Others believed it must be acquired during a full moon. The nuances here make complete sense in a medieval mindscape where lunar phases dictated planting cycles and marked time. These seemingly arbitrary stipulations echo the village smith's careful forging of a horseshoe. Steps taken, not frivolously conducted. At midnight of November, 5 priests commune together. One in black, one in red, finally becomes competent to worship. While medieval beliefs may seem archaic, this talisman endured, and endures still, through era's transformations. The rabbit's foot found its way across continents, adapting to the patchwork quilt of evolving superstitions. For example, in the melting pot of American folklore, the rabbit's foot was as cherished a possession as any witch's familiar, transcending cultural boundaries by virtue of its supposed potency. Of course, from our modern perspective, there's something gently humorous in clutching a token from an animal that most would rather catch napping in a sunbeam. yet the laughter is laced with affection for our collective imagination's resilience, a way in which tangibility allows for emotional reassurance when faced with life's unknowns. Imagine medieval travellers grasping tightly to their charm as they walked under open skies, fraught with risk and uncertainty. As with many superstitions, the lore surrounding rabbit's feet involves debates over authenticity. Was it truly an ancient Celtic tradition, or did it sprout roots in hoodoo practices in America? The scholarly disputes form a tapestry as colourful and intricate as the talisman itself, evidence of our timeless quest to secure a bit of fortune in an unpredictable world. From fuzzy good luck charms, our journey navigates toward notions less rooted in pocket talismans and instead in the quirks of day-to-day movement under a shadowy sky. Will your path be impeded by a simple obstruction or altered by tradition? The looming arch of a ladder brings us to the next chapter, an exploration of why stepping beneath brings about its own peculiar brand of trepidation. Steady your step. A tale unfolds that will indulge such practical superstition with a delightfully timeless twist. The sun climbs higher now, casting longer shadows that stretch lazily across the cobblestones and fields of the medieval landscape. As you wander these meandering paths, a triangular silhouette stands conspicuously in the village square, a humble ladder, an everyday tool yet one surrounded by its own brand of superstition. Much like the shadow it casts, the lore surrounding the act of walking beneath a ladder has lingered long in human consciousness. Picture the craftsmen of the past, labouring under the brisk morning sun, hoisting ladders against rough-hewn stones, balancing between worlds above and below. To these artisans and villagers alike, the ladder was more than a mere object. It formed a symbolic triangle when leaned against a wall, a shape revered in the Christian Trinity. Consequently, passing beneath this symbol was perceived as a desecration, a rupture in the sacred that invited misfortune. Moving through the bustling square, you imagine the bustling life around you, with people alert to every omen. Breaking the sanctity of the triangular space seemed to invite calamity. A fallen worker, or, more playfully, a bucket's unplanned descent upon an unsuspecting head. Humour walks hand in hand with trepidation, a delightful rendering across history's canvas that weaves through narratives born of practicality and piety alike. The ladder's role in holding divine symbolism was often fuel for many debates between scholars. Did the belief stem solely from religious iconography, or did it anciently echo the geometry of pyramid power? Staring up at the clouds from behind a blocked path, it's worth pondering whether our ancestors were perhaps a tad too imaginative, or perceptive, in their interpretations of shapes within religious construct. When it comes to ladders, some strange tidbits have wormed their way through time. Popular lore insists that crossing oneself, spitting thrice, or making signs against the evil eye could prevent the hex of a transgression. If you can picture it, medieval squares bustled with villagers performing small clandestine rituals to right their footing. While laughter may follow these antics, understanding dawns in recognizing how such actions thread a tapestry of symbolic gestures. They speak to the resilience and creativity that characterized medieval life, where unseen forces were battled with words and actions as much as with physical prowess. In fact, the avoidance of walking under ladders is one of the few medieval superstitions that exists robustly across dimensions of time into modernity. Whether traced to the practical hazards presented by a painter's perch or obstructing a solemn procession, the ladder stands as a curious conduit, a remaining vestige connecting present to past in ways both whimsical and profound. You might mark how gently this journey sweeps you into puzzles yet unsolved in your own corridor, with glimpses through today's eyes finding tomorrows within which another age will lay its descent, doling favour from the start of their own laddered stairs. Where we leave one superstition, another waits in reflection. Beyond the warning triangle lies an unseen peril, a fracture in the reflection of fortune. The shattered visage of a mirror whispers unease, teasing tales only begun. Journey forward, lifting your gaze from cobblestones cast in shadow as the narrative unfolds its silvery surface. The morning sun filters through slender branches, dappling the ground in patches of gold as you wander deeper into the heart of medieval superstitions. Ahead, the smooth, glassy surface of a mirror gleams with a peculiar allure, whispering secrets hidden behind its pristine facade. A simple reflection can contain stories as rich as the Queen's tapestries, Yet when shattered, its jagged edges spell 7 years of misfortune. The mirror becomes a lens not only of vanity, but of fate itself. Imagine yourself in a dimly lit cottage, candlelight flickering against the wooden walls, as a young woman adjusts her hair before a polished metal or glass mirror. A luxury in a time when reflections were rare and precious. Mirrors held more than just images, they were windows to the soul, casting back an echo of reality laced with metaphysical musings. It's as if the very essence, looking back, was intertwined with destiny. The breaking of a mirror? Oh, how the thought brings a shiver. Consider the sound of splintering glass, a soft yet jarring disruption that lingers in the mind like a discordant note. 7 years of bad luck is the price, echoing the 7 gods of Roman mythology, or possibly drawing from the idea that the soul renews every 7 years. Historians are divided. Some see these connections as post-rationalizations, while others argue ancient mystical significance. Either way, dropping a handheld mirror was not recommended. Humorously, modern equivalents might elicit sighs of, well, there go my chances this decade. The mirror's ancient legacy adds layers to this belief. The Greeks, whose lore spoke of mirror magic, believed reflections held divine purpose. For them, mirrors were tools of prophecy, evolving into scrying devices for peering into hidden truths. The Romans furthered the myth, proposing that a broken mirror splintered one's soul, requiring time to heal. Perhaps accounts of broken pots or split reflections convinced Romans across provinces to propagate this belief, adding a Gothic touch to daily routines. A fascinating detail lies in the blended fabric of myths, drawing from Egyptian use of polished surfaces to invoke deities. Mirrors thus reflected aspirations and fears in the face of mortality. You can imagine the medieval mind wrestling with how such polished surfaces might trap one's soul, to reflect 7 more years of ill favour, wishing each dawn to touch less darkness. Such superstitions weren't entirely removed from practical inclinations. Mirrors, expensive and delicate, needed careful handling. Society wove such caution into tradition, warning the careless with spells of unfortunate consequence. An admonition wrapped in myth made the lesson memorable. A stroke of genius in the guise of cautionary tale-making, comparable to workplace memos disguised as tales of woe. Today, like your phone's cracked screen held with resigned acceptance, we inherit hesitations passed through generations. Modernity's acceptance of ancient sensibilities stands testament to the human penchant for entwining myth with reality, embracing caution and tradition in tandem. Let this knowledge settle gently around you, like the soft, inevitable dawn cresting over hills far away, as you venture on. Our journey leads us forward, navigating the allure of chance's wheel, a spinning marvel that dictates where fortune dwells. Dance into the hymn of fate's tempo as we explore the Wheel of Fortune's delightful unpredictability and weighty significance over the medieval conscience. Through the winding pathways of medieval belief systems, you find yourself drawn towards an enormous wooden contraption adorned with symbols, an object of mystery and fate, the Wheel of Fortune. In the cool embrace of the early afternoon, the heavy churning of the wheel echoes the turning of the cosmos, each creak and groan a whisper of destiny unwound. Imagine a bustling medieval fair, surrounded by the smells of roasting meats and fresh hay. The loud call of merchants, the undercurrent of wagering, and the laughter of children meld with the rhythmic creaking of the Wheel of Fortune. It stands haphazardly against the sky, a testament to the capricious nature of Lady Luck. Medieval folk gazed upon this wheel with awe and anxiety. Its spins were more than mere games. They were the embodiment of life's vicissitudes, the eternal dance between prosperity and downfall. The concept of the Wheel of Fortune, or Rota Fortunae, found its roots in Roman philosophy. The goddess Fortuna, hands on the wheel, represented the randomness of fate. Today you dine in castles, tomorrow beg at gates. Historians delight in debating its influence, tracing literature from Boethius to Dante, cascading down to Chaucer's narratives. It is charmingly ironic to think of this intellectual relic enjoying modern fame among Las Vegas's neon. Medieval art is richly imbued with images of this wheel, often depicted in allegories reminding all of life's ever-changing nature. Perched precariously, kings transform into paupers, the beggar becomes a prince beneath Fortuna's impassive gaze. It's a dramatic rendering, perhaps echoing the villagers' everyday experience of uncertain harvests and stolen moments of joy among strife's thread. In these tales, the task of accepting fortunes dealt could be likened to navigating modern career changes or stock market fluctuations. Medieval folks leaned on the allegory to explain randomness and justice, concepts ingrained with moral lessons strewn through artistic and literary endeavours. Let's humorously acknowledge that one might yet see the modern parallel as the spinning lottery wheel, desperately seeking fortune in serendipitous sports and financial endeavours. While the wheel made tangible the mysteries of fate, it also posed philosophical questions extant within medieval thought. Was human life truly set by fate, or could one control destiny by sheer will? Scholars have long pondered the role of free agency. Did one submit blindly to the wheel's whims, or seize its handle, determined to influence its course? Medieval theologians wrestled with this, destiny's defined paths versus the struggle to carve one's fortunes anew. This rich tapestry of questions and interpretations provided medieval minds the means to cope with unpredictability. Discussions of philosophical gravitas were often bandied about with the potent enthusiasm of today's idea sharing on social media. Without, of course, the tech perks of. As you delve deeper, consider how associations with the wheel persists today in cycles of fortune, cultural icons, and pop culture rings extolling fate. We remain enchanted, albeit rational beings, playing out the same narrative dialogues initiated by ancestors seeking meaning amid chaos. The medieval wheel, a tangible reflection of life's unpredictability, invites contemplation and pause, allowing you to unfurl these thoughts like a flag caught in the breeze. From one turning of fate to another, our journey beckons forward, past philosophic whims of chance to the heavens themselves, unfolding myths and beliefs about celestial bodies, how the harvest moon shone pathfinding light through darkened fields, her secrets ever pulling at the heart of lunar lore. As you step into the cool embrace of the early evening, the sky is a vast canvas painted with shades of twilight. Above, the moon begins her ascent, a celestial beacon casting her silvery glow across the world below. This luminous orb, the harvest moon, held a cryptic allure for medieval minds, a cosmic guardian weaving stories through the tapestry of the night. In fields ready for reaping, and barns brimming with expectation, the moon's glow provided more than mere illumination. It whispered the secrets of time and nature. The harvest moon especially was a focal point of folklore, its light guiding farmers through late-night labour, extending the day to gather precious crops as autumn kissed the horizon with a farewell's chill. Imagine the scene. Rolling fields where workers, their faces bathed in moonlight, toil against the rustle of stalks cutting and collecting beneath the nocturnal guardian. The harvest moon was more than a celestial body. It was a mystical ally, a steady presence as seasons turned. To the medieval farmer, the moon wasn't just shining overhead. It was a part of life's rhythm, intricately connected to the fate of fields and families. The moon has long been an object of fascination. Scientists, poets, and dreamers alike gazing upwards to its pocked, silvery visage. As you ponder its ancient hold, it's amusing to consider modern hearts planning moonlit picnics, or howling canine companions serenading its light as they prowl suburban neighbourhoods. In medieval times, lunar lore extended beyond agricultural cycles. The moon was seen as a divine feminine force, a counterbalance to the sun's masculine energy. This cosmic duality spun narratives of power and prophecy, with the moon influencing everything from the tides to human emotions, moods waxing and waning in synchrony with her phases. Historians still argue over the specifics of lunar influence in medieval thought, whether the alternations of moon dictated childbirth, inspired madness, or simply embedded seasonal predictability. Here, one finds elements of astrology, breaching ecclesiastical strongholds, merging celestial observations and mystical interpretations into a soup of celestial sophistication. Astrologers, the learned figures concocting fate with star-studded maps, were the influencers of their age, distilling moon idiosyncrasies into more fathomable foretellings. A quirky footnote in history recalls how moonlit nights were prized settings for secret rendezvous and clandestine gatherings, lovers exchanging promises beneath her gentle gaze. Romantic, certainly, yet practical. Moonlight's naturally soft illumination made fumbling less likely, as poems were shared and promises sealed. However, not all associations with the moon were so tender. The lunar influence on madness, or lunacy, carries its roots in medieval belief, ascribing temporary insanity to her bewitching pull. It's somewhat endearing how the moon, an unchanged celestial body, could brim with such manifold meaning, inspiring wonder in her regular showings across the velvet sky. Our ever-bound affinity to the moon remains true today, framing midnight conversations and silent wanderings, capturing imaginations spellbound by her radiant dance among the stars. With reflection and reverence for such cycles, you move lightly ahead, not so much inspired by lunar desolation, but curious, yet to uncover mysteries swathed in oceanic depth. To the sea we turn now, to tales of enchantment, where water and myth intertwine beneath starlit canopies. Anticipate meeting mermaids, creatures of alluring song, from the darkened embrace of the waves washing ashore, their tales reflecting human desires and fears, caught within timeless seafoam melody. Herein lies the true essence, beneath the cresting waves, swirling ever onward towards the distant call of maritime sirens. As the moon begins its slow climb across the indigo expanse, casting a shimmering path on the restless waters, you drift toward the coast in your medieval reverie. The air is brisk with the salty tang of the ocean, the waves lapping gently against rocky shores, as if whispering secrets old as time. Here, amidst the swells and surges, lies a world of enchantment, a realm where mermaids lured sailors with songs spun of temptation and tragedy. These aquatic sirens, half human and half fish, occupied a special niche in medieval lore, embodying both the perilous allure of the sea and its enigmatic beauty. You can almost hear the haunting melody rise and fall with the tides, a spectral hymn inviting weary sailors into the ocean's embrace. Picture yourself on a wooden ship cutting through the starlit waves, eyes scanning the horizon for a glimpse of fins breaking the surface, or the outline of a figure perched upon a sea-slipped rock. For centuries, sailors' tales recounted encounters with these mysterious beings. Their voices were believed to mesmerize and deceive, leading men to doom upon jagged reefs or beneath the tumultuous waves. In such legends, mermaids mirrored the dual nature of the sea itself, a bringer of sustenance, yet fickle and unforgiving, capable of swallowing vessels whole. The fascination with these oceanic enigmas wasn't limited to seafaring men. Medieval texts and art depicted mermaids in ways both enchanting and cautionary, their appearances heralding storms or fortunes depending on the storyteller's whim. Imagine a gathering of bated breath listeners, sailors sharing tales of their adventures, each clinging to a morsel of intrigue about these ocean-dwelling beings. Historians debate the true origins of these siren stories, whether they were born of sightings of manatees and dugongs, or if deeper psychological currents influenced imaginations dazzled by the unknown. Whatever the genesis, the stories persisted, weaving a siren song that continues into modernity. Interesting that the fascination with mermaids dovetails with current pop culture narratives and folklore-inspired animations where curious swimmers still dwell beneath placid surfaces. It's not difficult to envision how fascination aroused both romance and wariness, much like today's hedge antics on credit dynamics, reimagined into spectral banks where fair maidens exchange pies and quips. Embedded within each tale lies an elegant mingling of innocence lost and worlds beyond mortal comprehension, speaking to the universal lure of the unattainable. Conversations around mermaids often opened a window into deeper desires, yearnings for escape from the rigours of medieval life and exploration of unknown frontiers. At the addictive cusp of danger and discovery, sailors felt the thrill of the siren's song, if only just to touch the edge of imagination's horizon one fleeting moment longer. Back on solid ground, the tensions between fascination and fear encompass the interplay of human adventure with nature's mystery, a delicate balance of wonder and wariness. As you turn away from the dance of light on wave and wind, step forward towards shorelines anew, pausing to cleanse salt-crusted narrative nets once unclear with whimsy's pour. This pull toward the mysterious realm mirrors the journey that leads us next to soft places within homes and hearths, where guardians of toothless dreams await childlike-eyed, and stories bridge loss with promises of unseen rewards. Shadows lengthen into bedrooms, and secrets drift into nighttime air as we prepare to meet the dental traditions lying cushioned beneath pillows, casting curious glances toward dreams of safe exchange. As the last tendrils of ocean mist give way to the warmth of flickering hearthside embers, you step into the familiar embrace of home. Candlelight pushes back the encroaching darkness, and within this cocoon, another realm of superstition comes into focus, one woven seamlessly between dreams and innocence. Welcome to a tale of curious exchange and nocturnal magic, the lore surrounding children's lost teeth, and the early precursors to the tooth fairy. In the dimly lit chambers of medieval cottages, life revolved around simple rituals and rites of passage. The loss of a first tooth, though commonplace, was steeped in its own brand of mystery and significance. You see a child, face aglow with wonder, clutching a tooth as if holding a treasure containing some tangible piece of the maturing self. The day's excitement simmers into the hush of evening, with tiny footsteps padding out a ritual as ancient as the building blocks it represents. Fascination with teeth, and their departure, spanned centuries and cultures, often accompanied by practices meant to protect, guide, or summon fortune. As you settle into the soft storytelling rhythm of such traditions, one realizes how even a severed tooth bridged the mundane with mysticism. In parts of Europe, tossing a milk tooth into a burning fire was believed to safeguard the child's future, the crackling flames eradicating impurity as the soul continued unsullied. Where children wished upon stars, guardians spun tales full of whimsy and warmth, stirring hope in gleaming potential under pillows. This practice, echoes of which persist today, offered comfort in times signifying growth and loss. It's like an age-old exchange market, albeit with a tangible reward overseen by unseen hands. Yet not every tooth was simply given away. In Viking culture, children's teeth were said to bring good luck in battle. Warriors wore them, giving new life to the phrase "gritting one's teeth" as they faced danger with youthful courage. Consider how such practices reflected the times, when strength was drawn from the innocent remnants of familial bonds, pairing simplicity with heartfelt purpose. In medieval England, it was customary to bury teeth in the garden, a quaint ritual meant to prevent the witch from gaining power over the child. The fresh earth swallowed tales of possible enchantment, while villagers spun stories in guardianship of those they held dear. Historians ponder how these practices arose from fears of sorcery and folklore's tight grip on communal life. It's charmingly humorous to compare these tales with modern children waking to small tokens, delighting in the fantasy of generous fairies. A sense of monetary wonderment whose weight was measured by coin but valued in dreams, existing as a playful balance of reality and imagination. The Tooth Fairy's shadow stands long and enduring, a testimony to the persistent allure of the unknown. Today, these traditions endure, evolving alongside long-forgotten recollections, crossing cultures, and weaving tales anew. The shared universal experience of childhood leaves imprints that traverse not just ages but attitudes, echoing a pure belief in life's intricacies woven with wonder. The quaint exchange beneath pillows becomes an untapped repository of tales. Thus we cast our eyes toward the twilight horizon as whispers of bygone legends carry us into shadowy realms of nocturnal trepidation. Night's humordimly freights new tales inviting your steps toward dusk's gentle claw, where wind whistles secrets between solemn trees and moonlit roads diverge in the uncanny. Our compass points invisibly, drawing you nearer to the haunted echoes of wind-borne melodies, sharing names that stir the dreams on whimsy's wand. The evening landscape is quilted with twilight hues, where shadows stretch like the gentle breaths of the earth settling into a quiet night. As you drift toward the edge of a slumbering village, the air carries a peculiar sound, a high-pitched whistling, cutting through the evening's stillness, echoing faintly through the darkened streets. This charming yet eerie sound is not just an expression of merriment, but a harbinger, a melody laced with ancient superstition and cautionary tales. Picture yourself standing at the threshold of this medieval hamlet, where every whisper in the wind is a cipher waiting to be unravelled. To whistle at night was to summon more than the ire of sleeping families. It was thought to beckon spirits, inviting mischief or worse into the sheltered quarters of domestic life. The origins of this superstition remain as enigmatic as the winds they ride upon. flitting between cultural folklore and practical ruminations. You tread carefully, almost hearing those ghostly calls carried on the air like a minstrel's pluck, notes mischievously inviting echoes of folklore past. Common wisdom suggested that to whistle after dusk was to court disaster, a belief mirrored in numerous cultural tales across the globe. Some villagers knew these tones as a summons for trickster spirits, such as the mischievous bogies, or fair folk keen on upturning the expected flow of nighttime tranquility. There's a humorous strain to this belief, a reminder of parental reprimands echoing through time. After all, quiet was sacred in those dim-lit hours when the veil between worlds thinned and vulnerability heightened under the stars. Travel forward, and these tales, though seemingly quaint, evolve into silent mantras passed through generations, morphing nearly into bedtime reminders rather than warnings. Historians often debate whether these superstitions originated from natural fears, the unknowns wrapped in darkness, or were the fragmented echoes of forgotten myths. Within deeply wooded patches and open fields alike, the belief endured, even creeping into naval lore where whistling was considered a tempter of storms. Imagine sailors, those hardened navigators of destiny, shushing youthful exuberance for fear Poseidon's wrath might boil over restless waters. The song's secret was the story, hidden reminders of life's fragility and mystery, waiting beyond the lamplight's reach. Whichever belief held sway, the night and its sounds became woven into the fabric of medieval consciousness, threading stories of caution together with the whispering winds. As you walk away from the hamlet's edge, the whistling fades into the background, and the night feels less haunted. There's a laughter in recognizing the innocence wrapped within such simple acts, yet these precautions speak to a human tendency to seek pattern and meaning amid the unseen. Threads binding lore, experience and humor in a tapestry that touches us even now. Turning from the night's lullaby, your journey carries you forward, beckoning toward a different mystery lying at the crossroads of faith and superstition. Here, the common symbols that danced through the past, vibrations captured within curious marks hinting at numerology, numbers and the power they held, await beyond, ready to unravel their coded significance in medieval equations of delight and mischief alike, calling to be rediscovered in delicate balance between myth and meaning as you journey further into this mystical realm where the past intertwines with charm and mystery. The moonlit path brings you to a quiet village square. A curious stillness enfolds this place, where symbols and numbers silently hold court over human thought. A world where digits clung to whispered secrets and veiled power. This is the realm of medieval numerology, where every figure spun webs of destiny, tallying life not just in grains harvested, but in the numbers that traced the invisible contours of existence. Picture yourself amidst scholars and clerics deeply buried in manuscripts, hands tracing numbers upon parchment with quills dipped in ink as dark as night's shroud. Here, numerology crept into the creases of everyday life, shimmering with an allure that promised an understanding of the universe's hidden structure. Numbers were more than abstractions, they were viewed as keys to unravel the divine order, or sometimes as portents of fate's cruel twists. In these times, numerologists, the mathematicians of mystery, turned calculations into allegories and crafted meaning from calculations. Though we may laugh now at their earnestness, marvelling at the quaint, they were akin to oracles of the age. Each number carried layers of significance, peeled back through cycles believed to affect the celestial and terrestrial. Consider the number 3, emblematic of the Holy Trinity, a sacred triangle where divine harmony resonated through its repeating motif. Its presence was sought in architecture and art, a force of design and devotion. Contrast this with the number 7, a symbol of completion, whispered in the chronicles of creation, weaving through 7 days, joining Genesis with generations. Historians still debate how numerological wisdom was applied, whether it framed the Gothic arches soaring to the heavens, or merely adorned the pages of sermons nestled within abbey walls. For many, numbers also hid mischief within their carefully scripted curves, shown clearly in the phantom cries of the number 13. Here lay a digit neither wholly embraced nor banished, hovering at the edges with a peculiar power. Skittish avoidance and deliberate embedding of structure belied the nervous laughter of medieval hearts. Embarking through this numerological landscape, There's a whimsical tidbit in how medieval folk might spin tales, as a farmer recounts his harvest. Counting bales and bins with a charm that sought to teach, fortune might bow to organization. Their laughter echoes through the ages, a manifestation of life's wild uncertainty, refracted into inverse symmetry by numbers' mere thought. And through it all, religion and superstition braided numbers into daily mantra, divining luck from symbols artfully arranged. The birth dates foretelling destinies, calculations transmuting mundane into mystical. Every corner of life danced to arithmetic's rhythm, while folklore relied on numbers' tongue to inform stories that lit the hearthfire's glow. As the moon glides gracefully across the sky, you drift from numerology's murmured calculations, letting the subliminal allure of numbers dissolve into the woven fabric of tales yet untold. Your wandering thoughts turn toward guardians held in pocket-size amulets, small tokens yet mighty shields against invisible forces. Casting doubt aside, one meanders forth as charms remind us of shapes pending within cauterized memory, a realm breathing through talismans and trinkets, poised to embrace stories forged in whispers of intent and fate's craftily woven pattern. In the soft glow of the medieval evening, as the shadows lengthen and the world settles into a hushed rhythm, you find yourself wandering into a realm of subtle power and quiet protection, the world of amulets and charms. These small artifacts, tucked away in pockets or hung around necks, held the weight of whispered hopes and silent prayers, standing as sentinels against unseen forces that lurked just beyond the flicker of candlelight. Picture the homes and hearths from long ago, where villagers clung to simple objects imbued with significance beyond their humble forms. Each charm became a personal guardian, a talisman holding the power to repel evil, ensnare luck, or bring comfort in uncertain times. As you walk into this narrative, the air hums with the quiet energy of these symbols, each possessing a story of its own. In medieval society, charms wielded a paradoxical blend of practicality and superstition. Imagine a grandmother tying a small pouch filled with herbs and bits of jewelry around her grandchild's neck, murmuring blessings as soft as the shadows that danced in the corners. Amulets of silver, iron, or stone served as barriers against malice, their forms varying from crosses to crescent moons, each reverberating with cultural and religious undertones. One charming example is the use of garlic, both amulet and culinary staple, dangled over doorways or worn as a necklace to ward against malevolent spirits. Less a culinary faux pas, more a medieval life hack. Historians ponder the ambiguity of belief. Was it purely intuitive? Or did aromatic properties suggest medicinal protection cloaked in mystical guise? Of course, amulets didn't solely focus on personal protection. Think of the travellers, merchants, pilgrims and wanderers, clutching talismans woven with travellers' blessings, ensuring safe passage over treacherous terrain. The weight of such objects lay not just in materials but in belief's conviction, an affirmation that one's steps carried divine watchfulness, humming with encoded faith. Amid law's tantalizing embrace, certain charms bore the imprint of merriment amid layer upon layer of practice. Some craftspeople of the time created love amulets, curious items conceived to draw admiration or kindle passion's flame. The heart, carved from wood or stone, pulsated with promises of affection, a token carried close, poised to spark dalliance whenever hearts entwined. Beyond the realm of affection and adventure, guises of occult power sometimes inhabited these small tokens. European societies flirted with alchemical experimentation, melding bits of science and myth in hopes of forging trinkets with powers supernatural. The sacred geometry, careful incantations, and secrets forged from whispers made these objects coveted yet shrouded in mystery. Across threshold after threshold, these tokens illustrated belief, fear, hope, and yearning. Mesmerizing in their simplicity yet profound in their meaning. Whether they sought to entice love, prolong fortune, or repel sorrow, each amulet dangled a question within itself. Did faith grant its power, or did power inspire faith? When we look into today's world, these echoes find new vessels. Chain bracelets, grandmother's medallions, or family heirlooms subconsciously shared across generations. Like quiet echoes, they remind us of ancient wisdom. How even now, a small token may embody protection amid life's unpredictable swell. Let your footsteps trace gently away from these familiar talismans as the journey beckons onwards. Listen to whispers less quiet and more urgent, where wails of the Banshee slide from the fog. A spectral narrative steeped in foreboding, revealing stories that once bled fear into shadowed corridors. The Banshee calls, inviting you to explore tales filled with longing melodies, tethered to sorrowful echoes and faded voices left at doorways nearing ethereal dawn. As twilight deepens and shadows weave their intricate tales across the landscape, you find yourself drawn into a realm filled with hushed whispers and fleeting echoes. The world of the Banshee. Her haunting wail, carried on the winds of folklore, is a sound that sends shivers through the soul, promising sorrow wrapped in mystery. It's here, upon the moors and mist-laden valleys of the medieval imagination, that the Banshee's lament echoes most profoundly, a spectral song foretelling the inescapable embrace of fate. Imagine wandering through a fog-draped landscape, the air cool with the dew of approaching night. Here, lost among the lichen and heather, the Banshee looms as both guardian and harbinger, her keening a strident announcement of impending sorrow. Her appearance is often described as an ethereal figure, wreathed in flowing garments, her eyes pools of sorrow and foresight. She is both fearsome and captivating, a contradiction as intricate as the lacework of tales woven around her. The Banshee's cry, a mournful and chilling sound, was believed to presage the death of a family member. To hear it in the darkened hours was to confront mortality's shadow, a reminder that life's spindle turns ceaselessly. History tells us that, in Irish and Scottish folklore, the Banshee isn't a malevolent entity, but rather a tragic vessel, bearing the burden of sorrow for those she watches over. Stepping softly through this haunted landscape, you find the air heavy with expectation. The origins of the Banshee are subject to scholarly debate. Some suggest she may be born from early Celtic mythos, while others point to ancient traditions of women singing laments at funerals. Regardless, her presence became a cultural cornerstone, a figure blurring lines between worlds, entwining destiny and the mystical like vines through an ancient forest. Despite the inherent foreboding, there's an endearing curiosity to the Banshee's lore. A being driven by duty, tethered by love and loss. Ironically, her mournful cries were meant to afford families a chance at final farewells, an opportunity to reconcile, to prepare, often expressed with poignancy over parting cups of fragrant tea or steaming bowls beside embered hearths. The wail of the Banshee wasn't just limited to whispering through lonely moors. Urban legends adapted, their haunting tales travelling from the Emerald Isles to medieval courts and villages, carrying an aura of gravitas wherever keen listeners settled. Imagine children, or even mischievous adults, through generations mimicking such cries across nighttime fires, the tales taking on lives of their own, bouncing between jest and genuine reflection. In contemporary musings, it's quaintly amusing to parallel Banshee lore with our modern appetite for ghost stories on stormy nights. Like true campfire yarns, they tap into the same well of intrigue, a human thirst for exploring mystery, to touch the hem of the unknowable just long enough to feel life's pulse anew. Yet as much as folklore paints the Banshee as a somber figure, she serves an allegorical purpose, acknowledging the impermanence of life's fleeting moments. In medieval times, stories of the Banshee wove into the tapestry of existence, binding the bond between reality and the ethereal, echoing longings for companionship that transcend the veil of time. With the echoes of her wail fading into the swirling mist, we leave behind this spectral cadence, carrying forward an enriched understanding of humanity's dance with destiny. Breathing deeply, the journey beckons toward everyday rituals, where one finds the strange customs that infiltrated medieval kitchens. Rituals promising culinary divination and protection, wrought over simmering pots. Along smoke-curled pathways through rustic hearths and wooden stoves, we explore the unexpected culinary superstitions that seasoned medieval lives with savoury tales. The charm of flickering hearths calls you into the cosy embrace of a medieval kitchen, where warmth and possibility mingle over earthen floors and wooden beams. Here, within these aromatic confines, the world of culinary superstition unwinds in spices and stews, weaving stories through the crackling of logs and the rhythmic chop of knives. The kitchen, heart of the home, extends its influence beyond mere sustenance, becoming a stage where the ordinary transforms into the mystical through the simple stir of a ladle or the careful spill of salt. Imagine entering this aromatic haven, where each clatter of pots and clang of pans sounds like a symphony of rustic life. In such kitchens bustling at the heart of medieval homesteads, the everyday act of cooking carried with it threads of tradition and lore. Spilling salt, an occurrence seemingly mundane, held greater consequence than a dash of misfortune. Salt, valuable and revered, was more than seasoning. Its very essence was protection against evil, a shield rendered from the sea itself. Consider the flick of a wrist, miscalculating a measure, and salt cascading unceremoniously across the table. Here, the ensuing ritual, pinching a sprinkle between fingers and tossing it over the left shoulder, was a gesture built from years of faith that such an offering would blind lurking spirits. It's a quaint piece of theatrical practicality, a delicate recession against what might be tempted through. Pause here among the tantalizing odors cascading from bubbling cauldrons and stews thick with root vegetables and meat wrapped in garlic's pungent embrace. From this heart of the home wafts more than flavor, wafts fragments of history seasoned with fear and belief, turned quietly remarkable. Garlic, already celebrated as a supernatural rebuttal piece, finds further resonance where vampires and their ilk lurk hidden in shadowed margins. Medieval folk assigned purity and power to certain culinary elements, threading them into the wider tapestry of life. Herbs were grown not just to heighten stews, but to foster protection. Bay leaves pasted above door frames, or rosemary worn in sprigs, were more than footnotes in a cook's binder. They were amulets, tools of defence brewed alongside broths, it was said, by some in a jest, others with eyes scanning kitchen shadows, that the scent of basil persuaded fairies to lend their charms for tenderer roasts. Moving amid the warmth of hearth and home, one realises that culinary superstition clenched fortune and nourishment alike. Eggs, in their cycle-born fragility, were harnessed beyond the frying pan. A prophetic shell, placed unmoving in water, was thought to divine matters of the heart, its trajectory a silent blueprint of love's direction. The debate over whether these traditions held intrinsic truth or simply formed clever devices for order channels us into contemplating, perhaps only numinously, our similar modern ethos. Reflections on kitchen behaviour skip through familial generations, tracing lines back across time's broad tapestry, sharing advice, both earnest and quirky, binding old-world charms to our current culinary recitations over whispered recipes. These kitchens composed intimate clattering theatres where belief encased daily routine, grounding the uncertain vagaries of existence with the straightforward rhythm of the cook's spoon and the vigilant gaze of its holder. Thus, with a gentle waft through medieval kitchens and the curious folklore baked into ancient loaves, we tread forward to numbers tangled infamously within the dusty alleyways and regal banquet halls alike, uncovering why fear pulls attention to the mystifying essence of the number 13, an untouched integer casting elongated shadows across human history. Let us lift veil upon veil beyond numerology's profound blend, where trepidation accompanies our journey between edge and centre post, in a dance choreographed with cautious tread. As you leave the welcoming haven of medieval kitchens, the road ahead leads into narrow cobblestone streets, where a curious unease hangs in the misty air like a whispered caution. Here, the number 13 occupies a peculiar place, shrouded in mystery and foreboding, a numeral that seems to cast a shadow longer than itself. Its reputation for misfortune stretches across time, leaving indelible marks on the psyche of societies past and present. Imagine the medieval town square bustling with life, where merchants peddle their wares and children chase each other in playful abandon. Amid the cacophony, the quiet trepidation surrounding the number 13 thrives, an undercurrent felt but seldom spoken aloud. It's a number that, through its very existence, inspires a cross-fingered pause, a quick glance averting an unseen danger. The origins of triskidophobia, the fear of 13, are as elusive as the number itself, swirling amid ancient mythos and religious contexts. Some theories trace this apprehension back to Christian narratives, notably the Last Supper, where Judas, the betrayer, became the 13th guest at the table. This alignment of events, whether by divine coincidence or narrative convenience, stamped the number with an aura of betrayal and doom, cascading down centuries like ripples in a darkened pool. Delving further into your temporal jaunt, you find the fear of 13 manifesting in architectural choices. Stories absent on buildings and floors emitted from medieval towers and keeps. Even banisters seem to instinctively skip a step. A quirk of human design mirroring deeper discomforts lingering in echoing memories. The number 13, entwined in dichotomies of reason and superstition, provides fertile ground for scholarly speculation. Was it an excess? A stretch beyond the completeness of 12, which symbolized cosmic order and stability in cultures ranging from the Babylonians to the Druids? Or perhaps, as some historians argue, it was simply a case of human tendency to find patterns in chaos, seeking out meaning where randomness reigns. In the folklore-laden corridors you navigate, the number's reputation wove itself into tales both tragic and humorous, propagating stories of ill-fated gatherings and schemes gone awry. A grand banquet prepared, only to stumble at the presence of a 13th guest, spurred inventive escape plans or sudden ploys to secure an unplanned 14th arbitrator. Such strategies bred hints of levity amid genuine belief, a shared chuckle threading lightly among the somber implications. Despite its ominous reputation, 13 has its defenders, and paradoxical nuances where certain pockets of society embraced it as a number rife with hidden virtues. To the Norse, it was associated with strength and prowess, while others treasured its oddness like an unsolved riddle, an unlit candle waiting for just the right match to strike. Modernity embraces echoes of this fear, manifesting in elevator panels and hotel bookings that ignore the numbered spectre. Yet, alongside avoidance stands a whimsical curiosity that pervades human culture, fostering debates over whether superstition or numbers' unassuming character spills greater influence across history's ever-lengthening spreadsheets. As the sun dips below the horizon, sheathing the streets in murky twilight, you ponder the quaint reality of this bewitching number. Does its essence spring from fear, carved early in humankind's narrative clay, or does it mirror the complexity of human experience itself, creating patterns and puzzles for our mindful indulgence? With a sense of understanding woven tighter around you, the journey begins its unwinding, taking a trailing turn toward institutions where superstition and rudimentary science wrapped themselves around the practice of medieval medicine. Cast your thoughts forward into a curious blend of scalpels and shears and the wild-eyed art of barber surgeons, whose hands, both healing and harming, wielded instruments of intrigue and distress as they navigated the corporeal maze of flesh and fate. As the echoes of the superstitious number 13 fade into the evening air, your path leads to the bustling heart of medieval towns and cities, those hallowed halls and bustling chambers where the art of medicine, or what passed for it, was practiced. Here, amid a cacophony of bustling markets and echoing castles, lies the world of the barber surgeons, their tools glinting under firelight, a mixture of fear, respect, and necessity binding them to their trade. Picture a crowded street where the sounds of commerce hum alongside the rhythmic clang of metal. The figure of the barber surgeon stands conspicuously, a fusion of roles that to modern sensibilities may seem strange, yet in medieval times was completely accepted. These practitioners were the guardians of rudimentary hygiene and kinesthetic fixers of anatomy, skillfully, or at times not so skillfully, manipulating scalpels and razors with their weathered hands. Step inside a small stone chamber where the air is tinged with the scents of iron and soap, shadows dancing along walls lined with wooden shelves cluttered with mysterious potions and shiny instruments. The barber surgeon's chair, a throne of both agony and hope, awaits its next occupant, a person seeking relief from maladies unknown, delivered from pain by the swift incision of practiced hands. It was here that superstition and science frequently rubbed shoulders. Barber surgeons were often viewed with awe and suspicion. They wielded the scalpel and leech with a mix of empirical knowledge and mysticism, their work informed as much by folk remedies as by formalized teachings. One mainstream historical fact holds that barber surgeons functioned as the everyday medical practitioners, even performing basic surgeries too daunting for physicians, establishing themselves as both necessary and perilous figures. The tools of their trade, blades, scissors, and leeches, were part of rituals that were as much about trust as they were about skill. Imagine the murmurings in the street when a barber surgeon performed a bloodletting, using sanguine humour in theory and sanguinary reality in practice, efforts believed to balance humours and cleanse bodies of harmful spirits. Scholars argue whether the persistence of these bloodletting practices was rooted in genuine medicinal benefit or more as a placebo, a spectacle convincing enough to satisfy the anxiety of medieval clients. The barber surgeon's pole, swirling red and white stripes, stands today as a curious remnant of those days, echoing whispers of the blood-stained cloths wrapped around such stakes, spinning narratives of recovery and well-being like charms cast upon the wind. And at these practices existed strange tidbits of superstition, surviving in small talismans of bone or metal, held in a patient's hand during procedures, believed to absorb pain or deflect harm. How peculiar, then, to think of such charms augmenting the capable hands guiding a blade, fingers dancing between feared science and curated myth. For every procedure performed and remedy sought, there lingered spectres of failure, yet still these amateur wielders of cure pressed on. One imagines the tormented tug-of-war between mistrust and necessity, patients returning again and again to the same chair, their faith lying in the hands of the last salve remaining, when all other measures failed. The barber surgeon's know-how. Consider how these threads worm their way into our modern context, imagining the quick detours along impractical remedies and dubious health potions purchased today. In this passage across time, the dilemmas straddling superstition and science remain eerily the same. Alive still in the human psyche, unsettled ever slightly in moments of healing that demystify even adored progress. As night draws over the city, the silhouettes of these storied practitioners blend with history's gnomon sky, their trade both revered and feared, enabling survival amid an intricate mosaic of belief and biology. From here we wander deeper into the nether hours, enveloped by midnight narratives, where ghostly riders traverse the night. Shadows and flames flicker like whispers upon horses' manes, rushing toward midnight assemblies whose tales extend through the darkened streets, folding between criers of ancient chants and spectral legends, birthing each new dawn. As the quiet of night blankets the medieval landscape, a new story begins to stir in the fringes of your imagination. Midnight gathers its whispering shadows, and you find yourself amidst the undulating silhouettes of ghostly horses galloping through misty meadows, their riders mere echoes cloaked in ethereal mystery. In this hour, when twilight turns to darkness, tales of ghostly midnight assemblies emerge from the whispers of history, where enchanted gatherings unfold in the realms between waking and dreaming. In the medieval imagination, the night was a time when the boundaries of reality softened, allowing the supernatural to join the living in covert union. Picture a valley shrouded in silver moonlight where spectral horsemen convene under an ancient oak, the quiet whisper of hooves barely disturbing the sleeping earth. Here, amid the shifting light and clasping shadows, phantom riders are freed from the constraints of day to partake in whispered parliaments hidden from mortal eyes. These tales of midnight riders often spoke to themes of justice and retribution. The Wild Hunt, a legendary cavalcade seen in various northern European cultures, was led by a spectral leader, sometimes Odin, other times an unnamed ghostly figure. Rising from the depths of folklore, the hunt was a group of spectral horsemen racing across the night sky, their presence an omen of turmoil or great change. In dimly lit cottages, children would whisper tales of seeing these dark hunts whirling through skies, their eyes wide as they peered through shuttered windows. To witness the hunt was to encounter a crossroads of fear and fascination. Knowing to be caught within it might mean disappearing from the world entirely, drawn into the otherworldly host. The origins of these tales are debated among scholars. Some argue that they are remnants of ancient pagan rituals, symbolic of the eternal chase between darkness and light, while others find their roots in old rural traditions, reflecting societal fears and the human need to explain both natural and emotional unrest. Amongst the many tales, the common folk might weave stories of ghostly monks silently walking ancient footpaths, their lanterns flickering in the cold embrace of night. With every crunch of leaves or snap of kindling underfoot, spirits recounted and reshaped communal narratives, iterating stories that softened the harsh reality of uncertainty and lent understanding to the unfathomable. In these stories, the whinny of a distant horse or the mournful hoot of an owl could evoke a village shrouded in whispered speculation, each resident left to contemplate their place amid destiny's turning wheel. The night was thus a time cloaked in reverence and fear, a stage upon which the living acknowledged the unseen forces guiding their fate. Though few dared venture into the embrace of night, reclaiming their paths by day, the courage and folly intertwined allowed such ghostly tales to endure. It is both charming and chilling to consider how community law structured these gatherings within the world of dreams. The play of existence, observed and enacted upon fields of sleep and imagination. Today, as winds trace familiar patterns through moonlit landscapes, the echoes of those midnight assemblies continue to intrigue and mystify. Folklore thrives, breathing upon the margins of sleep, allowing us to question what lies beyond the known and deepen our connection to the eerie beauty of a world unseen. As you drift away from the ghostly riders trotting through time, journey onward toward the luminescent paths lit by flickerlight across moors where wisps dance, teasing travellers under canopy dark. We motion towards the uncanny glow of the will-o'-the-wisp, captivating phantoms that lead the curious astray, drawing forth a seeing touch to uncover what magic inspires the heart to quicken its pulse underneath strangers' stars. As the veil of night stretches across the landscape, shadows melt into the moors, and the air shimmers with the ethereal glow of a distant light. Enter the realm of the will-o'-the-wisp, those mischievous phantoms that lure travellers into curious meanderings beneath the uncertain grasp of twilight. These ghostly lights flicker in the distance, their pale flames dancing atop marshes and bogs, sparking awe and apprehension for those who encounter them on paths strayed far from familiarity. Imagine the scene unfolding on a stretch of moorland where the horizon blurs into the starlit tapestry of the night sky. In the distance, a soft beacon pulses, an orb of otherworldly light that hovers and shifts, inviting the weary traveller closer with a teasing glimmer. For the medieval wanderer, the will-o'-the-wisp was no mere optical illusion. It embodied enchantment, a flickering torch lighting the boundary between the natural world and the supernatural. Tales of the will-o'-the-wisp have long cast shadows over folklore, each tale an invitation to consider the thin boundary between solid ground and the watery mists that blur reality. These lights were often believed to be the spirits of the dead, souls unable to find rest, or perhaps fairies engaging in nocturnal mischief. Their allure lay not just in their luminescence, but in the promise of hidden treasures, or gateways to enchanted realms just beyond reach, forever whispering, "Come hither, discover what lies beneath." The origins of these mysterious lights have sparked endless fascination and debate. Some scholars suggest they've arisen from natural explanations, bioluminescent gases igniting in marshlands, or reflections of starlight on misty ponds. Yet, to the medieval mind, ensnared by superstition, science alone could never encapsulate the wisp enigmatic charm. Consider this. You travel by night, lantern swinging rhythmically by your side, hoping its glow might compete with the wisp's mysticism. Then, just as you approach, the light recedes, enticing you deeper into the wild and far from safe passageways. Such tales often ended with weary feet mired in bogs or wandering lost. The villagers' whispered conclusion? Spirits tugged at the strands of mortal impatience, teaching lessons in humility born through venturesome curiosity. Humorously, one might compare the wisp's elusive allure with modern pulls, a vibrating phone perhaps, promising messages from afar in the depths of night's solitude. We remain just as captivated by the unreachable, chasing sugared phantasms that linger surprisingly with experiences barely disentangled from waking. Stories liken the wisp's light to that of law, a reminder, a cautionary tale. In certain parlance, the cautious attributed their appearances to Jack-o'-lantern, or the Lantern Man, a lost soul doomed to wander as eternal penance. From flickers atop watery expanses to beliefs entwining across cultures, these ghostly lights remind us of humanity's ceaseless quest for discovery and understanding, a pursuit as illuminating as it is obscured. Today, the will-o'-the-wisp persists within fairy tales and ghost stories, keeping alive the ancient art of wonder. Its glow invites reflection upon youthful curiosity, or ignites the stirrings of exploration in those seated before fires, eager to transcend boundaries that hinder the known. From these moor-bound phantoms gleam, step forward towards subtler omens that manifest within the senses. Specifically, a peculiar sense tied close with phantoms of past tales, the absence or presence of smell triggering ancient narratives. Here, the next chapter beckons with promises of uncanny olfactory ghosts, things less solidly touched, yet fervently experienced through sense of fate, drifting through the edges of our receptivity. As you meander further into the realm where senses blend with superstition, the air takes on an enigmatic quality, rich with scents that evoke memories and stir emotions. The path leads you into the delicate interplay of aroma and fate, a world where phantom smells serve as omens, whispering secrets carried on the wind, imbuing them with meaning beyond the ephemeral. Breathe deeply as fragrances weave through the air like ghostly tendrils. Here, a hint of lavender drifts softly, and there the musk of wood smoke mingles with the cool night breeze. In medieval times, such scents were more than sensory experiences. They were augurs, subtle harbingers that could presage events both joyful and dire. The scent of roses, for instance, might portend love or bounty, while the cloying odour of brimstone suggested caution, or worse, impending doom. Imagine the simple dwellings of the medieval townspeople, where inhaling the right scent could quell anxieties or spark fears. Stories echoed across generations, each recounting how peculiar fragrances visited at odd hours could predict change. A wisp of garlic might overwrite thoughts with caution, arming one's spirit against spiritual threats, while the sharp tang of vinegar wafting from nowhere could heighten awareness of unforeseen potentialities. Historians suggest that these beliefs in olfactory omens stemmed partly from an era where scent was essential to daily life, from the kitchens to the apothecaries. Medieval healers understood that a scent could be medicinal, invoking remedies to soothe body and soul. The role of aromatic herbs and spices became integral to ritualistic practices, bundles of sage stewing in corner cauldrons, driving away negativity and solidifying visions through shimmering steam. The nose, that keen perceptive organ, captured more than pungent odeurs of day-to-day life. It formed foundations for narratives where smells twinned with lore, disbelief dusted only slightly beneath tradition's touch. Tales and traditions fostered minute mythologies, surrounding the faint perfumes that drifted like guardian spirits over humble hearths. In expansive kitchens, bustling markets, or solitary hermitages in the forest heart, fragrances were companions. They walked alongside travellers and lingered, evoking gratitude or trepidation, emotions extending far beyond simplistic encounters. Olfactory triggers diverged between earthly and divine, bound symbiotically with whispers of doom or serendipity woven into the mundane. The debate among scholars remains whether these tales were born from psychological triggers or socially intertwined with community lore. Does the scarlet of roasting chestnuts foreshadow evening storms, or whisper only as echoes from narrative past? Consider, too, how scents might be construed as modern parlance foyers unleashed, channeling déjà vu with a flicker of becalmed joy in a perfumed air. Yet, despite conventional explanations, even today, travellers across epochs might attest to sensations nudging intrepid curiosity, perhaps the scent of vanilla sparking nostalgia, or oil lamps' faintest traces evoking spectral gatherings. As tales wound through medieval cottages, unruly scents painted living canvases alive with possibility, resonating nuances betwixt reality and dreaming. They rendered life's tapestry rich in complexity, reminding societies of their intricate relationship with the natural world, an eternal dance between realms visible and hidden. With these fragrant echoes drifting into ambient night, our journey arcs toward its narrative culmination, drawing gently upon the juxtapositions of mystery and tradition as eras merge in observant presence. We approach the final proximate bridge of belief, where superstitions fade softly and whispers intertwine harmoniously with the footsteps of time, celebrating existence's shared odyssey. Gather now, as one embraces the night's comforting dusk, breathing tales ever lingering, rekindled secrets vacating past shadows, as we prepare the penultimate hearth to rest, inspired by reflections in mirroring calm. As you walk the final stretch of this rich historical tapestry, the echoes of medieval superstitions softly blend into the modern world. The path lies before you, gently lit by the fading moonlight as the past recedes like a dream dissolving upon waking. It's a journey woven through time, whispering still of those quaint beliefs and captivating tales that have touched your imagination and tugged at your senses. Picture yourself standing on the brink of a forest clearing, the air thick with the earthy scent of pine and scattering leaves. The warmth from the embers of your fiery travels flickers against the ancient stones. Here, where the echoes of yesterday play faint harmonies, superstitions that once bind and guide no longer hold. Their sway over the human mind diminishes as the observer embraces both reason and wonder. Consider how many of these beliefs, so fiercely guarded and passed from lip to ear, formed an integral part of the medieval psyche, tirelessly knitting communities together in shared caution and curious exploration. While facts and fiction often blurred, those beliefs gave rise to unique narratives, colouring the world with meaning gleaned from shadowed whispers and starlit paths. As the narrative threads unravel gently, you embrace their ineffable charm. Fragmented remnants, once fragments of fear or hope, morph into whispers born softly by centuries. How endearing to think our ancestors, seeking answers beneath a canopy of stars, sewed tales of witches, will-o'-wisp, and phantom smells into the fabric of daily life. In this understanding, one finds comfort, a companionship that connects past and present, reminding us that belief has power and that mystery holds a delicate beauty. Superstitions of yore may fade, but their essence lingers in the human imagination, inviting us to wonder about what lies beyond the edge of the known, inviting us to explore with cautious curiosity. In the quiet of this moment, the wind reddens as it brushes past leaves and blades of grass, a gentle caress marking both an end and a beginning. Rains that softened the earth, fires that warmed the hearth, winds that spirited ghostly echoes. They have prepared stories, affable as fables, weaving time's mantle beautifully across the centuries. The cycle closes softly here. Worlds once mysterious, now illuminated by fresh understanding. Just as the sun brings certainty, each dawn reveals precious knowledge gained from history's embrace. As you welcome the coming day, celebrate the insights gathered and cherish the exploration between realms old and new. With ease, let your thoughts drift, carried upon the gentle waves of time's infinite sea. Rest now. Embrace the calm that follows a journey well taken. Embrace a future moulded by the past, one where truth dances with the fanciful allure of tale's end. Breathe deeply, for the shadows whisper a lullaby steeped in humility and humour as they extend their ghostly hands, asking you to remember. Sweet dreams,